Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to today's Kyle Seraphin Show. It is Friday, January the 16th. We're a friendly Friday, which means we're going to have Steve Friend come here. We've got some interesting things to smash down on our scandalous federal law enforcement. And that means that before we could get started, the entire computer crashed again. It's really a pattern here. I don't know where it comes from, and it's hard to attribute it to anything other than the commonality of it often being when my buddy Steve Friend pops up and we have a title that indicates we're going to talk about the Federal Bureau of Investigation, we have issues. Sure, it's totally nothing. I actually don't know what it is. It's just very commonly hitting at exactly the same time. So that's always fun. What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the new deputy director of the FBI. We did kind of a little touch on him. I didn't realize some other things about him. And it's making me think that the people within the FBI that are calling the shots, and that's not the director. It might be the deputy at this point, but I don't know. It looks like they're setting up Patel to look even more foolish than he already does. Just leave that right there. And then I'll let you make your own mind up. We're going to give you some information about it, and we'll weigh in. We're going to go through some documents. I've got a case file, the story of Christine Crowder, whose story we actually broke on this podcast about 2 years ago. Became a central issue for Rand Paul's office, and they did a big hearing in October of last year. It broke again that it was a big deal about 9 days ago, and 6 or 7 days ago, they named a new deputy director of the FBI. And of course, he's connected to that case because why wouldn't people inside the Bureau put forward someone that was involved in the surveillance of a paralyzed Catholic school teacher, mom, wife of a federal agent who wasn't even the right person for January 6th and investigated her for 2 full years, including putting her on the Quiet Skies watch list, which is something I think we actually straightened out here on this podcast. The investigation dropped 3 weeks after we did our episode, and she was interviewed the day after we did the episode with Sonia Labasco. I'll just say that is very, very interesting and coincidental. Got a couple other stories, including the destruction of free speech. All of the things that the lefties were claiming Donald Trump would be, Kash Patel is walking directly into, whether he's doing it because that's what the Trump administration wants or because he's just a dummy and he's actually doing what the FBI is telling him to do. Hard to say. Some really damning information over time about his position on both free speech and then I guess more importantly, whether or not we're going to actually just have freedom of the press in this country and you can say what you want and you might be able to be critical of this administration, or if you're going to face a $5 million lawsuit like me, or maybe a search warrant at your house. Steve's going to be talking with me about that as well. I don't know. And I mean, it doesn't mean the other side is any better off. We've got like complete lunatic attitudes happening still in Minneapolis. So I've got a whole bunch of clips and a bunch of fun stuff to talk about. And we're going to get into all that in just 1 second. Before we do, Patriot Protect. They are our friends that come here and occasionally give you bad news about what's going on in the cyber world. But more importantly, they will also help you protect yourself. Go to the website, patriot-protect.com/KYLE. Use my name at checkout and save 15% on an annual subscription. It's relatively inexpensive. It's probably one of the least expensive things that you would pay for. It's about, I don't know, $7 or $8 a month on the annual. Scammers and cyber criminals raised the stakes last year in 2025 and in 2026. You have a choice. You can act or you can stay exposed. If you are a federal agent, maybe working in a law enforcement role, this would be a really great time for you to have something like this and remove some of this information from the web. 2025 was a turning point because the threats to privacy and security became more powerful, more precise, and they became harder to stop because the scams didn't just increase, they leapt forward in complexity and AI began voice cloning. Text messages started sounding just like your friends and family. Emails could impersonate banks, and they pulled a lot of people in, and people lost a lot of money. They also targeted companies. It wasn't just people, and they weren't just chosen at random. What happens is when your personal information is available, your name, your address, your phone number, your family members, your age, your online behavior, and so on, people start looking and decide whether or not you're a useful target. And if you don't want to be a target because they can't find out that stuff about you, you might want to have it removed. And patriot-protect.com/KYLE is the website that we use here at the Seraphin household. My folks use it. There are other suspendables as well who have signed up for it, especially after they've had some negative outcomes. So check it out. 100 plus million Americans have been exposed by these things. These leaks include massive amounts of things, data and persons. So you don't want to get in that pile of potential scam targets. Just keep yourself out of the pile and stay away. Make yourself a harder target at patriot-protect.com/KYLE. Link in the show description. Let's dive in right now. All right, so we are going to bring on this guy. He's been doing the American Radicals podcast of late, and he's been stepping up his game over there. So it's good to always have the real Steve Friend, not the fake Steve Friend. If you guys are wondering, that is his handle. You can find him on social medias at Real Steve Friend on X. And welcome, bud. Are we wearing the same? You're wearing a Henley neck or something. What are you wearing?
I've got a couple of buttons, a little bit more fancy than you. My wife dresses me better.
Well, I dress myself, usually in the dark, so I don't know what you're talking about. Steve, what is going on this Friday? And is the FBI setting up our former buddy and now maybe the future target of a lawsuit by the Friend household?
Man, I can't help but go back to things that we've talked about over and over and over again, and that is like the country needs a return to the 90s. Very, very much so. Mm-hmm. And particularly, I was thinking about the movie The Big Lebowski, which I think came out in 1998. And I do that in the context of the FBI because apparently they didn't find out what nihilists were from The Big Lebowski because they're going after those sorts of people. And they didn't know that the Supreme Court has roundly rejected the concept of prior restraint. Like
that's a classic Lebowski line.
It seems like a lot of problems that could have been solved with 90s mentality.
Mm-hmm. What you want to start with the Washington Post story? Because actually, you know what? Hold on. Let me start with what I think is very, very concerning. And it's twofold. Number one, it's a guy that's in the FBI saying things that are very concerning. And then a clip that went out of the president of the ADL, a guy named Jonathan Greenblatt, I believe. And he said some stuff that for all the people that think that the Jews are out there trying to do whatever it is they think the Jews are trying to do, we have this little thing that pops up in our group chat on a regular basis. Aaron Stevenson, our resident black pillar, always says, not beating the allegations when people do the thing that they're claiming that they don't do. And the ADL is not beating the allegations. So can I lead with that? And then we'll get into the Washington Post story.
Yeah, and I think you need to actually set up the ADL with a little bit more of a preamble, because the ADL is the organization that hosts the very special tour of the Holocaust Memorial Museum that all FBI personnel are supposed to go to. At least I don't know if they still are required to do it. They might have done away with that tour because they try to teach you to not.
They might have made it a whole week for all we know, actually.
And it's actually a very good tour, and it's one of the inspirations behind why so many of the suspendables came forward. We learned that lesson that never again is actually a thing there, and the ADL puts that on. So there is an actual relationship between the Anti-Defamation League and the FBI, and then when you partner it with the new footage of this guy going out there and giving out taskings to the FBI, it can be problematic. They're not beating the allegations, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's saying things that are really concerning, I think. I mean, I don't know what else to call it, but it seems very troubling. Okay, so here's Kash Patel. This is his position on social media. It needs to be policed more. We need to be getting out there. As a federal law enforcement agency, your First Amendment, it's not something that you can just expect the government not to monitor. Why would you think that? Anyway, this is him. This is going back a couple of months when he was talking to, I think, the owner of a newspaper in Baltimore, and his name is Armstrong something or other. Doesn't make a difference. Here are some kind of damning positions.
The simple answer, in my opinion, is social media is wildly out of control, and there's too much clickbait in this country. And one of the things I highlighted at Congress in my testimony last week was, if we want to protect our youth, we got to get more involved in social media and online platforms, because that's where the folks, the assassins of this world, get radicalized. That's where they're the lone wolf actors in general. And so we have to get after that problem set. And I asked for Congress to help in doing so. But speaking of Charlie Kirk, who was a very dear friend of mine, And then I was tasked with leading the nationwide manhunt to find the perpetrators involved. Of course, we were going to use every resource we have to find every single person involved, and the investigation's still ongoing. But we...
Is that his tell when he's saying things that are bullshit? Is that what happens?
That's the Christopher Wray full stop.
Christopher Wray used to highlight his lies by saying full stop at the end of them.
Yes. Yeah, that was his verbal tick. And
Why
he
did
also
he
had the
just sniff
bobblehead
like
thing that
that?
would go on. The more and more he was uncomfortable, it would teeter all over the place. Kash is pretty straightforward. The sniff is...
The sniff is a really good one, but there's actually two pieces to it as well. He also does either the would I do this thing or of course I would do this thing. He either says something in the definitive or as a question to indicate the veracity of what he's doing. Now, you would expect that he does, of course he would understand the difference between free speech and people doing things that are dangerous and not dangerous. That's why I have a lawsuit that I'm facing right now. Here he was sitting on the couch with propagandist Katie Miller, the wife of Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller. So this was a fun interview.
Expect that of us. We know the difference between someone making fun of us, someone mocking us, someone saying hyperbole versus someone creating a situation that's going to harm us or our families.
I mean, but like, does he?
Well, that's really hard-hitting interview. It's like the cheap, generic knockoff Walmart version of Travis and Taylor. You know, that he was trying to prove how she's really his girlfriend, not a girl who's his friend. So I don't really think he's saying there.
That's such an a-hole thing to say.
But
Steve.
He's got a problem with social media, and yet I noticed that Andrew Bailey, now he's back to being the co-deputy director of the FBI.
Yeah, he was the deputy director for a few minutes, and now he's the co-deputy again.
Is he not pulling off the most alpha move of all time? Because
yes.
Kash Patel is beholden entirely to this idea that you have to be on social media all the time. You just wait 5 minutes, he'll tweet about it. Like, that's his leadership style, I guess. And the directive must have come down to Chris Raya, however it's pronounced, that he had to set up his new Twitter account. Did they not issue that directive to Andrew Bailey?
I'm sure they did.
Really
funny?
And Bailey was like, nah, why don't you go bleep yourself?
I'm not going to do that. I'm a serious person. You be a not serious person. So yes, the most alpha move in the FBI currently, maybe in all of our federal government, is when someone says, hey, you have to have a social media account. And they're like, no, I don't. You're not my dad. Yeah. You're just some Indian guy who's in charge of the FBI right now that does weird stuff. Can I show you the funniest thing, folks? If you haven't seen this yet, this is going to make Steve laugh for sure. But there is the new co-deputy director of the FBI and the director of the FBI, who is holding two hockey sticks. He's a total bro. He's going to go play some hockey. And so the co-deputy director that got named is wearing a New York Islanders jersey.
Rangers.
No further information. Sorry, Rangers, not an Islanders.
Yeah, he's going there to cheer on his boss. That's
like
an alpha
like
move.
a proud dad.
Like, Dad, I now think that Chris Raya...
Daddy, did you know that I played hockey? I play hockey, Dad. Did you know that? Do you want to come to one of my games? Yeah, sure, kiddo. I'll come to one of your games. That'd be good.
I think Chris Raya must drop his pants to his ankles when he goes to the urinal in a public restroom. Like, that's the level.
Like my 5-year-old? Like my 4-year-old? He drops all the way down. He drops his pants to the bottom. We're not just like playing with this guy. There actually is some really scary stuff that they elevated him in a way that I cannot actually fathom. Dude, I love the people in the chat are telling me Rangers versus Islanders. Like, I care. Like, it's a bunch of dudes who are figure skating. I don't.
And most of them are not even American. They're
not even American.
Bacon cheeseburger.
They're not bacon cheeseburger. Okay, so what is the bacon cheeseburger nationalist? If you were going to guess, Steve, if you were going to speculate on my movement, what do you think the bacon cheeseburger nationalist position is on free speech and social media, the ability to express yourself?
Absolutism.
It really is, though.
Yeah.
Honestly, and outside of an actual crime, I'm not even upset about incitement. Because when you tell other people to go do something, they still have agency. They don't have to. I'm not even sure it falls on you. I get it that we've written all these laws. I don't know how those laws even stand under the plain reading of the First Amendment, which continues to get chiseled by these people. Again, I want to make America constitutional again. Let's just go back to the original document. Did they mean you could say anything, like really inflammatory stuff about the King of England, who may or may not have been the boss and had soldiers that could come enforce it? I don't understand how we got here where we think it's okay to just cut back and forth. Oh, yeah, we're going to infringe on your Second Amendment. We're going to infringe. There's a bunch of exceptions to the Fourth Amendment requirements for search. We don't necessarily need it if we have 10 different reasons, like you happen to be driving a freaking car, which everybody does. All this stuff makes me very upset.
We had the Supreme Court unanimously this week, and I'm going to touch on this in today's AMRAD pod, unanimous decision from the Supreme Court that basically said the Fourth Amendment doesn't exist anymore because of safety. The police can just boot your door because they think there's a safety issue, not that they have any probable cause or reasonable suspicion, or are they actually witnessing something going on. They're like, hey, somebody there might need us because of safety reasons, so we can go in.
They legitimately, whether people understand this or not, there's ring cam footage or like some sort of security cam footage of a guy. Where was this in? Utah?
The one I'm talking about was in Montana, and it was a different one. But yeah, the one you're talking about was the guy who was there to serve process paperwork and then just happened to go in and then smoke the family dog.
Killed the family's dog, like walked in through a closed door, like a door is a door, whether it's made of glass or not. And the guy opened a door, knocked on the door, and then decided that the door was open, even though you could actually see from the footage when you watch some of it that it was probably closed because the people who left, you heard a closing of a door before they left. So it looks like he walked into an open door. And apparently, yeah, a wellness check is good enough. I need to make a sign that says we do not request any wellness checks. Kindly F off. Because I don't want any cops coming in. And I'm just going to remind people, while we're talking about the judicial use of force, because we've been talking about that quite a bit. We've had the discussion about whether or not Renee Good was likely a justifiable shoot. You can have a likely justifiable shoot and it's still not being a great scenario to be there in the first place. And I think we can agree on those. We can have some nuance in this audience. And I'm going to remind people of the story of Craig what's his name? Craig Robertson. He had 3 names, and I can't remember what the middle name was. Anyway, he was a 75-year-old man that walked down to the mailbox at his house with a cane, and the FBI smoked him first thing in the morning because he made like reckless, scary threats, exercised his Second Amendment rights. He was a little bit reckless. And then apparently also made some sort of threats online. And the FBI came in, served a search warrant at 6 a.m. and shot him.
Oh, it was even worse because he made threats against Alvin Bragg. And then months went by, and then he made threats against Biden.
Right.
And then the Secret Service had to get edged out because the FBI didn't want to give up their dude. So they're like, oh, no, we actually already have a case, even though months have gone by, and it kind of stands to reason that he's not an actual true threat at this point. So then they went to his house, and he got mad and said mean things about the FBI. And then they sent somebody there to go smoke him.
Okay, so here's why it gets, I think, very scary for people when you realize the story of this, and this came out from 2023. This is not recent. The story of what's going on right now where people want to have their social media perused. And then you've got the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, which has completely lost the thread of like defending Jewish people from being attacked or defamed. All of it is kind of a weird name. They do really good training for the Holocaust Memorial Museum trip that we did, which was essentially saying, if you're in government, don't agree to tyranny. That's what I walked away doing. That's what you walked away doing. This sounds like they're kind of endorsing tyranny. And again, this is one of those not beating the allegations moment. Kind of freaks me out.
So number 1, we measure and track. Number 2, we monitor and disrupt. We have a whole apparatus. I have 40 analysts working full time, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, monitoring extremists. We monitor them online, social media, messaging apps, video games, cryptocurrency, podcasts, short form video, Wikipedia, LLMs. We monitor these people and we share the intelligence with the FBI. You saw last month, you heard about the thing that happened at Wilshire Boulevard Temple. Our analysts investigated what happened. They said they were Koreatown for Palestine, this group of people. They weren't. We were able to ascertain they were from a group called the Turtle Island Liberation Front. Turtle Island is how like left-wing activists refer to the United States. They don't call it America, they call it Turtle Island, like the Iranians call it the Zionist entity, right? They won't call it by its name. The Turtle Island Liberation Front, we gave them a whole dossier. What is Turtle Island Liberation Front? What are their ideas, their goals? Who are they? We identified the people who were in the synagogue. This was on Wednesday, December the 10th. On Monday, December the 15th, this is going to ring a bell. Kash Patel announced they cracked a terror ring where they arrested 4 people who were planning New Year's Eve bombings. Turtle Island Liberation Front.
The simple answer, in my opinion, is social media is wildly out of control, and there's too much clickbait in this country. And one of the things I highlighted at Congress in my testimony last week was if we want to protect our youth, we got to get more involved in social media and online platforms.
Great.
Did you catch on the language that he used as well? He was using analyst, extremist, disruption. They're using
they're using FBI
exact
statistical
same
accomplishments
terminology as the FBI because they're working hand in glove to do that in Turtle Island Liberation Front. 40% of them were FBI agents or informants. It was not a legitimate true threat. It actually reminds me more of the Heritage Foundation giving the tip. Again, tasking the FBI. The Heritage Foundation identified Peter Stinson, the Coast Guard sharpshooter, because he had mean tweets 5 years ago, like Douglas Mackey did. In the
He was
Biden
a sharpshooter. That's right. He was a sharpshooter when he served in the Coast Guard in what, in like the 1970s or something.
he had one high score on one pistol qual in like 1981.
That's right. So he just had a marksmanship ribbon. He was just a guy that one time did a good job on a qual.
Yeah. And the Heritage Foundation identified him and his 5-year-old tweets and referred it over to the FBI, and they went forward and charged him.
Let's pull this thing up here. Let me see if I want to make sure I don't have you. Oh, I know I have you a double. There, you're going to have an echo if I don't turn that off. New York Times versus United States. I thought this was something they taught in con law for us. Did they not? Did you not learn this at the academy too?
It was so long ago. I mean, it all runs together. But yes, yeah. We kind of learned that the First Amendment's sort of a thing there. It's like up there with Graham v. Connor or Tennessee v. Gardner. Like, this is a monumental First Amendment case where I believe the statement was that the Supreme Court roundly rejected prior restraint.
Right. So facts of the case, it became known as the Pentagon Papers case. I'm just reading you guys a summary from Oya's Law. And the Nixon administration attempted to prevent the New York Times and the Washington Post from publishing material belonging to a classified Defense Department study regarding the history of the United States activities in Vietnam. The president argued, or the U.S. government argued, that prior restraint was necessary to protect national security. This case was decided together with the United States v. Washington Post. And in the conclusion, they determined that the government did not overcome the heavy presumption against prior restraint in the press, kind of like the First Amendment would require. The Justices Black and Douglas argued that the vague word security should not be used to abrogate the fundamental law and the embodiment of the First Amendment. I don't know.
Prior restraint, for those who don't know, means that a judge can say that you can't publish that because of national security or safety, public safety matters. And that is a massive burden, because the reason we have a First Amendment in this country is so that the press can report about the FBI's or the federal government or whoever's misconduct or malfeasance. That's why we have a First Amendment. That's the reason that there's actually not a law on the books that prevents a member of the press from publishing anything that's quote unquote classified. Because otherwise, then they would be within the crosshairs of a law enforcement apparatus that wants to go against them for saying things that they don't like. And it's apart from the New York Times versus U.S., but the actual criminal prosecution of Daniel Ellsberg, who was the leaker in that situation, because it's different. I mean, he wasn't the member of the press. That's the press. The guy who actually leaked it, Ellsberg, he was prosecuted. The federal government not only broke into his psychiatrist's office to try to find derogatory information and illegally wiretapped him, but they went to the judge in the case and offered the judge the FBI director job if he ruled against him. That's the levels that our government will go to.
Let's quickly cover what's going on in the WAPO case, because what happened is essentially the FBI served a search warrant at a reporter's house, and this is where it gets really dicey, because there is a total ability for them to go after contractors or governmental employees who mishandle or steal or whatever, take classified information. If that happens, like, you can easily be held in violation of that, unless you're Hillary Clinton. You can totally be held, unless you're other
Joe
people
Biden,
too.
yeah.
Unless you're Joe Biden. You can be prosecuted. You can obviously have search warrants served at your house. What they did that was different in this case is they went after the reporter. And this is the exact same thing they did at WikiLeaks, as far as I understand it. It's definitely like a very similar gray ground. So if you're someone who thinks that the press, if they receive something, not necessarily knowing that it was stolen or recognizing that it has value, but they didn't ask the person to steal it. And that's the big difference. If you coordinate with someone to steal defense information and ask them, hey, can you get me something classified? And they do, now you're doing like an espionage type thing or something adjacent to espionage. And so then you can be prosecuted. But if somebody volunteers something like, hey, I stole this from work, or I took this from work and I think you need to see it, this is crazy, then the prior restraint thing comes in. New York Times v. US should take place. It hasn't. We've had this overwhelming presumption that national security is more important. And people have seen this since 9/11. This is the same reason why you had Operation Flex ruled that it was reasonable, that national security outweighs your First Amendment right to worship and your First Amendment right to speak, because national security is actually more important. The judiciary seems like they're on board with the new definition that George Hill talks about of national security, which is that nobody can die from terrorism or anything related to it. So now we have to protect the government. And our justice system doesn't serve us that way.
No, not when you even have, now duly departed Scalia ruling in a Supreme Court case that talking on behalf of a terrorist group is providing material support. Like, that's how far the Overton window has shifted in this area.
Terrifying. I'm going to also add that luckily there are members of the media who are willing to carry water for the administration no matter what, no matter how bad or how stupid it is. This is John Solomon of Just the News and Amanda Hurd. I don't know what she adds to the thing. If she was pretty, I would say she was pretty, but she's kind of like, she's only pretty in comparison to John Solomon, who's like the least. I was talking to somebody.
It's
I
like
can't
being
remember
the
who it was.
tallest midget.
Yeah, it is. It's like Kyle Seraphin in the Land of the Munchkins. Like I'm a giant, but I'm not a giant in real life. I was talking to a reporter within the last couple of days, and one of the funniest things was me describing how bad of a broadcaster John Solomon is, because he has a lisp and he's chubby and he's weird to look at and he has a big bald forehead and like all that's kind of gross. And so I was like, I don't know why that guy thought that he belonged on television. Like if you go from print to speaking and presenting, you should be articulate, which he's not. You should have a voice that's presentable, which he's not. You should have a face that people don't mind looking at. He's none of those things. And he's not so cerebral and brilliant that it actually overcomes all that stuff. Like you can listen to, Alan Dershowitz because the things he says might be very poignant. And you go, okay, fine. At least he has some sort of cogent argument. John Solomon says, and he just kind of goes over this. And he's sycophantic to this regime in a way that makes me want to puke. So anyway, it's personal grievance. What do you got? You were going to say something.
He also does the thing that you would do in a regular conversation where you just kind of give the, yeah, an acknowledgement, but it's terrible for broadcasting. You just have to sit there and bite your tongue and allow the person to complete their thoughts. Otherwise, it's very disruptive to the give and take of information for the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. So here's Kash Patel making the argument and having a mouthpiece placed to go ahead and do this thing where they're going to explain what sounds good until you dig into the fact that there's actually, Supreme Court precedent that says you probably shouldn't have been going after the reporter. And you're going to tell us a little bit more about the reporter in a second.
All right, joining us now, the FBI director himself, Kash Patel. Mr. Director, good to have you on, sir. I want to ask about this extraordinary event in the last 2 days. A lot of people in my profession interested in it. The home of a Washington Post reporter, searched by the FBI with a lawful search warrant. Tell us why this is unique in the history between the FBI and reporters.
It's actually not. So here's the thing. The information in question, no doubt, jeopardized the lives of American warfighters because the information that was distributed through the media was classified, and on top of that, involved sensitive operations. We here at the FBI are, of course, going to do absolutely everything we can to contain and respect classified information, and anyone who disseminates classified information will be arrested, just like this individual was, who was a contractor for an intelligence agency in Maryland. And so what I'd like people to think about is a little bit of the history here before we dive deeper into the facts. The Obama administration prosecuted more people for the disclosure of classified information made by public and media outlets to the tune of, wait for it, more than every other presidency combined. They also went after the AP and seized 20 devices and phones without a search warrant. And then there's what they did to James Rosen. So look, I don't want to hear about from the hypocrites that's saying, oh, we're doing this first off ever kind. What we did was...
Everybody else did it, so we're doing it too.
We're just going to do it too. Yeah.
God, what is this guy about? Who told him that was going to sound good? Hey, just go out there and do some whataboutism. That'll sound really good.
Just throw out the name Obama. And then people will disregard everything after that because they're going to be so mad at Obama that they will forget how you're doing the exact same thing that he did, that he was so roundly and rightfully criticized for. And you're also doing it in probably the most retarded fashion possible, but that's status quo for Kash Patel.
It's just slop. It's just boomer fed slop. And I don't know how else to describe it in a simple way, but let's go ahead and get into this article here, which was, I told people we were going to talk about it. This was updated 2 days ago. The FBI executed a search warrant at Washington Post reporter's home. The search came as part of an investigation into a government contractor accused of illegally retaining classified government materials. Government executed the warrant Wednesday morning. at the home of this Washington Post reporter as part of an investigation. The reporter's name is Hannah Nadesan, and she was at home in Virginia at the time. The agents searched her home, her devices. They seized her phone, 2 laptops, a Garmin watch. One of the laptops was a personal computer. The other was a Washington Post issued computer. And the Post received a subpoena seeking information related to the same government contractor, said a person familiar with the law enforcement action. Subpoena asked for all communications between the contractor and other employees. It is exceptionally rare for law enforcement officers to conduct searches at reporters' homes, but don't worry, the Obama administration did it, so we can too. Tell me a little about this reporter from what you know.
Well, let's just put aside the millstone that is the First Amendment that should be wrapped around everybody's neck here. Just from a tactical standpoint, strategically, Hannah Nateson, she is known as the federal government whisperer, the federal government worker whisperer, because apparently in the very early days of the Trump administration, because she's a leftist communist, she went onto a Reddit forum that had thousands of government workers who were big, mad, and scared about Donald Trump coming back in and they're going to lose their job. She put her contact information out there. She has cultivated over 1,100 federal government sources at this point. She wrote a piece about that, which I guess the FBI figured, all right, well, we won't worry about a taint team or anything like that. We just want to know all those sources so we can expose them. There's definitely not going to be any lawsuit attached to that. Or at the very least, maybe that 1,100 will turn into 11,000 government workers at this point, and she'll just have to stand up her own media apparatus in order to report on all the leaks that you're now going to cause. So well done, everyone. Well done, Kash Patel.
It's when you highlight who your enemies are, sometimes you make your enemies bigger and stronger. I don't know what it would really be called, but it's like the Harry Potter Voldemort effect. I always say this is like, it could have been any kid that Voldemort tried to kill, but he kills Harry, tries to kill Harry Potter, kills his family, and then Harry Potter becomes his nemesis. It's the same attitude. And by the way, this is like this is something that has happened in literature. That's the one that I think of right away.
Not Obi-Wan, strike me down and I'll become more powerful than you could possibly imagine.
Well, I think Obi-Wan was already powerful is the only thing. Like when you go after a baby, when you go after something that's in the cradle and you raise them up to the level where, did I know this woman's name beforehand? No. Did you know her? Did you ever think maybe I'd go to her? But I probably would now if I know what she's involved in and I know that she's willing to stand against things. So there are people in the government that are going to go, oh, that's the lady who's going to take the brunt of the hit. So, and she's willing to defend it. She's one of us. And so you're going to end up, like you said, building up a source network. This is an interesting little paragraph here. The United States has no law that explicitly makes it a crime for a journalist to obtain or publish classified information. In fact, we have case law that says otherwise. In 2019, and this is what people who are on the right, but generally speaking are willing to be critical of what's going on in Washington, D.C., they shared this with me as well. The WikiLeaks founder, Julian Assange, was indicted under the Espionage Act for disclosing classified information, and First Amendment scholars warned that his case should be the precedent, or could be the precedent, rather, that be used against these types of journalists. That issue was never tested in court because he pled out, and of course, then he was released, and so now he didn't have to do it after like a lifetime of imprisonment. He
wouldn't even come to the United States with a plea deal. They had to have it in the Mariana Islands.
I would have too. I wouldn't have come to the United States either. So in any case, all of this stuff is bad, not because I think it's great that people are leaking classified information, and I don't want people putting our soldiers at risk. I think that the free press is one of those scary, necessary things, kind of like free speech and being able to say whatever crappy thing you want on the internet. Just deal with it. I get more crappy things said about me than most people because I have a higher profile. And most of the time, I just smile at them. And I actually do physically, I actually have chuckles when I read some of this stuff because people are super angry about something that they know nothing about. And if they met me in person, they would be friendly with me because we probably have way more in common than they think. Just saying.
There's a lot of keyboard warriors out there, and you have to have a sense of humor about it. I mean, you don't want to just call them all black pillars and block them. I mean, you got to have that that a-hole streak.
You're such a jerk. You sneak these little things in here. Listen, the fact of the matter is I'm pretty confident that it's Donald Trump's fault. And you may know this too, but I think it's Donald Trump's fault. And I learned this from listening to politicians in Texas who are running for office. These are two men who are disingenuous actors letting you know that things used to be normal before MAGA. And it's actually MAGA's fault. Because remember, if you're a MAGA person and maybe you're out there in the audience and you're like, you own the red hat and whatever, or you're someone who gets regularly MAGA aligned like I do and you do, I'm sure. You remember that you won't talk to people you don't agree with ever. And it's actually your fault. Like, you changed the status quo in this country. Here are two men that are running for office trying to make that claim.
You know, before the MAGA movement came in, it seemed to me, and from what I've heard, is that Republicans and Democrats got along really good, right?
Absolutely.
It wasn't the polarization that we see on the national level.
Right.
It seemed like you could go to a restaurant afterwards with somebody and say like, okay, man. And I think that made Texas great because it was bipartisan.
Cool. That must be true. I'll get your reflection on that in just 1 second. Let me just remind people, if you guys want to support the program, you can do it for free. You just give us a like over on Rumble or on YouTube. And if you're watching on X, watch on one of the two places that has the video and isn't weird, because X is actually really a weird place to watch podcasts. If you want to join us on Locals, it's kyleseraphin.com. And then I will make you a plea. If you are listening, if you're an audio only person, you can't see me pointing to my ears right now, but I said audio only, and you could see me if you were listening on Spotify. KyleSeraphinShow.com. Spotify doesn't pay us any extra to ask you about it, but if you were so inclined, you'd be able to fast forward things and also switch between audio and video. It has chapters for those of you that are like, I'm not interested in this crap. What are you guys going to talk about? What I care about? Oh, the AI actually gives you chapters. There's a transcript there. It's all the things that you might want. The only thing is it doesn't run live. So if you're watching in the replay, check us out on Spotify. And that is done at KyleSeraphinShow.com. You want me to put on the screen? I'll put on the screen for you. You can only see it if you're on Spotify. There it is, KyleSeraphinShow.com. I pointed to the wrong side. You guys would have seen that too. You may hear a Spotify ad because they also pay us to do that, no matter where you're listening on audio. In any case, give it a look. And I think Steve's going to be over there pretty soon as well, whenever they shake out the shenanigans. Steve, why are we not getting along like we used to?
Like the good old days when George W. Bush was Hitler with the Hitler mustaches. And if you criticized Barack Obama on, I don't know, economic policy, you were a racist. I mean, those were the good old days.
That is racist, though, isn't it? Yeah, you can't. If you criticize his foreign policy, it's racist.
Yeah, I mean, the only controversy that man ever had over 8 years was that he wore a tan suit one time.
That's true. He didn't even drone any American citizens without a trial, ever.
Or deport a single person.
True. No deportations. We covered that yesterday. I want people to just consider, why are you guys all such jerks? So those of you who are sitting out in our audience right now, I'm talking to you. You know that you're jerks. You know that it's your fault that you won't talk to people that don't agree with you. Why won't you talk to this guy in Minnesota? He's a veteran. He's a fat guy. He is just trying to have his voice heard. He's totally reasonable, and he just wants to have a simple discussion about why you're a traitor and why you betrayed your oath as you do your job that is required by, I think, laws passed by Congress. That doesn't matter. You suck. It's your fault. Consider your sins when you listen to this man.
Come here and take a fucking oath to defend the country from foreign domestic terrorism and to fight for the Constitution. And these guys are coming here and disgracing this fucking building. I'm a veteran of 7 years. I've bled for this country. I've fought for this country, for these people here of Minnesota to come and fight these motherfuckers. They're disgracing this fucking country and what it fucking means. They hide behind their fucking masks like fucking pussies. We're out here in the middle of everything, showing ourselves, showing our Minnesota and our freedom. And they're here, bullshit.
I have that clip saved as Fat Guy is Mad at ICE.
I would have saved it as Monday Night Raw edition tape.
That was so good. He was so amped up, and I really believed him. I could feel what was going on there in his heart.
He's a veteran.
His heart is congested. He actually has limited circulation. Go ahead.
Veteran of what, though? I mean, that reminds me, I think, of the story of, you said, the woman chasing after the ambulance, saying that she was a family member of a veteran. And
yeah, she was like, open the door in the name of military police, family. Yeah, that guy is a veteran of something. We don't know what, though. Could be anything.
He's bled for this country. He just, shed a lot of blood at Arby's.
He was taking down somebody's American flag, and it had like a staple on it. It was one of the Chinese ones. They used pulling it off the wood, and it got him bloody. Listen, man, I'm not trying to take away from whatever that guy's patriotic sense of the world is. I'm just saying it's really hard to make peace with those. Okay, I'm not going to share the thing that I told you before we got started here, but let's just say this. There was another instance last night of these people who are just patriotically letting people know about the oath and the stealing of federal government-owned weapons and breaking into law enforcement cars. I actually know people who know the guy who lost his rifle. Like, that's so ridiculous. Guys, the world is so small that the person in Minneapolis, the FBI agent who had his rifle stolen, is like a friend of a friend. Yeah. And that's how funny and small the FBI is. And the reason I'm telling you that is because everybody in the FBI has the same connections that I do after 6, 8, 10 years, like Steve. Like, if you've been in for 15, we know all the things about you. This is the reason why Dan Bongino was always going to be a failure in that job as deputy. He doesn't know Dan Bongino doesn't know someone who knows the agent that lost the gun, wasn't, connected to somebody that was there that night. And that's how you end up putting people into charge that don't belong there because you don't know their story or history or anything else.
Yeah. The sun never sets on the suspendables empire, like the British Empire. Like we just have connections everywhere, which is what probably drives the 7th floor so crazy at this point, why they're probably the only thumbs down on Rumble right now.
They can't fake it. We are the Hannah Nadesan of the FBI.
It's true that, we make
we're not
one
commies.
phone call within 45 minutes. Look, Kash Patel reached out to us during the transition period, needed to vet an individual and said, I need to vet somebody right now. Like, I'm about to go in and talk to the boss about him. All right, I know what that means. And I made one phone call and within half an hour had a full readout of this individual, what their bona fides were, and whether or not they were, quote, on the team, and gave it to him.
Yeah,
it's
actually,
level. And that was somebody I'd never met.
It happens all the time. That's how you and I connected. It took me a few minutes to get your phone number, maybe 15. I was like, hey, I just saw this guy's story. Miranda Devine wrote about him. Connect me with Steve Friend. And people were like, got it. And it was like, the phone tree comes back and it's like the query takes a few minutes, but then you have it. It takes about as long as any government computer server would take, which is that you hit enter and then you can go get a cup of coffee. And when you come back, you got your answer. It's like the slow version of Google, the government version. Here is the story. This is Nick Sorter talking about it. From what I can tell, it actually was broken a little bit earlier by a guy, as far as I could tell, who was either a PJ or a pararescueman or a rescue squad member from the Air Force, seemed to have the first instinct on this. But the guy with the face tattoo, which is totally not recognizable when half of your face is covered in a tattoo. If you guys are ever thinking like, hey, I might want to do some crimes one day and I want to hide from the police. If you're listening, you can't see, but I have my hand covering like a good solid half of my face. Get a tattoo that runs like all the way up the side of your face, and then you can get away from it for at least a few minutes. But not forever. They will find you, and apparently they found the guy who lost the rifle last night.
I know you just talked to a high-placed source at DOJ. Tell us more.
Yeah, so he wasn't arrested last night. He could have been, but the Minneapolis police didn't bother chasing the vehicle that had just stolen a high-powered rifle out of an FBI car. So that stole it out of one of these weapons lockers that was in the back. But what I can confirm now is that Raul Gutierrez, age 33, that you see in the video that I posted last night, stealing a firearm from an FBI vehicle, has been arrested by the ATF and the DOJ. They executed an arrest warrant today, and he's a known member of the Latin Kings gang. I just got all this information just before I came on air. He's got a lengthy, violent rap sheet. Of course, he should have been in prison already, but in Tim Waltz, Minnesota, like they don't arrest anybody here. So it's not surprising that he was able to go out and beat this gun safe to a pulp and pull this automatic firearm out of it and run away.
Nick Sorter sounds like he knows a lot about guns, but he called it an automatic firearm, which means he doesn't know as much as he thinks he knows. Sorry, Nick. You don't know.
He was getting as excited as that fat guy from Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were going to have that was going to be the primetime matchup at the end of the broadcast on Saturday Night SmackDown. Yeah, he doesn't know anything about firearms, but look, he's amped up. He's really excited to be breaking this news that somebody who has a proven track record of making really bad life choices, be it about engaging in criminal activity or putting ink into your face, continued that trend of making bad decisions.
It happens. Let's talk about another fun decision. I think that if you're a representative for, I don't know, a constituency, let's say in the state of, hypothetically speaking, exactly Arizona, and you just got into Congress and you're like, how can I make a name for myself? The best way you could do it is to not represent your constituents, not try to help people out who are in fact your constituents. But the best thing would be to go and fly to Minnesota and hold something that is known as a field hearing, which was just made up today, and do theater where you're going to hear testimony from witnesses that are standing on the ground next to you in a place that you don't represent, because everybody knows Congress is a national organization, but it's also a national organization full of actors, clowns, and people that are like failed theater students. This is show business for ugly people. This lady's going to give you a little tip about why she's not representing her constituents in Arizona, not hanging out in D.C. She's going to go check in on something that has nothing to do with her. And I'm just really grateful for this kind of representation.
Hi, everyone. I am about to get on a plane to Minnesota for a field hearing on the ground with about 24 members, Democrats who are going to hear testimony directly from people who've been impacted by ICE's assault on the city. We're going to be meeting with local elected officials and fighting for accountability because ICE is terrorizing people across this country, including U.S. citizens. And of course, last week's murder of Renee Nicole Good was the most appalling thing possible from this administration. So I will keep you posted on what happens and stay tuned for more.
Oh, stay tuned. That is not the most offensive thing that I saw on the internet, even though we did have the same uptalk that makes you guys feel like the world is crashing around you. This is actually slightly worse. Steve Friend, hold on to your hats. The evolution of OnlyFans is also here.
After I said I would require a deposit to take me on a date to cover my date preparation costs, I'm now working with an app developer to make this a reality. This is actually happening. We are building the app. I'm not even exaggerating when I tell you this is the best damn dating app you have ever seen, because there is a clear difference here where the woman can set the deposit rate and the man can pay for her date preparation costs. So as a woman, you're going to walk into the date already so happy, and that's going to lead to a better date and a better connection, and that gives the man a better chance of succeeding in courting you. The app is called Courted. So when people ask, how did you meet? You can say, he courted me. So cute.
People are going to be like, hey, how much was your whore? And they're going to be like, oh, I don't know. I just courted her some amount of money. So that's cool. Listen, I give her a 9.5 out of 10 for rack because that was a very well placed like chest shot she did. I give her a 1 out of 10 for wearing a cross over the top of like ridiculously deep cleavage. I give her like a 9 out of 10 for pretty face, and I give her a 0 out of 10, maybe negative points awarded for the voice and the dumb stuff that came out of her mouth. Overall rating, 2 out of 10. Do not recommend this lady. That lady is terrible. But that's where we're going. And that is if that lady had any sense, she would run for Congress because she would get it. She would be 100% people would vote for her.
Same crazy eyes as the other woman from Arizona that just staring
it was the same clip to me.
back at you like a shark.
Yeah, it was like, hey, I'm a prostitute and I'm overtly a prostitute. Are you interested in an overtly prostituted person? I also have virtues that I'd like to share with you. Are you interested in these fake virtues?
At least the well-endowed court woman is engaged in commerce, right? She's engaged in the oldest profession, whereas the one from Arizona is just taking our tax dollars to fly and go interview witnesses who might have less credibility than John Nance, but it's close.
Why? What is date preparation? So I know, look, I've been out of the game for quite a while. I know you have too, but do you have any concept of what date preparation looks like and why it might cost money?
Flat ironing, it seems like that's a sunk cost. You already own.
Flat ironing is a cost. Okay. Yeah, that's just a time cost then, huh?
I mean, yeah, I guess that really is. It's the value of time where she could be doing an OnlyFans session.
Right. Okay. So it's an opportunity cost thing, possibly. Like it's like, hey, I could be stripping for strangers on the internet, but since I'm planning on coming to eat the food that you want to pay for it, it's going to cost you for me to put whatever it is. Yeah, I would be made up anyway. By the way, are those filters? Hold on, let's see your face one more time.
After I said I would require a deposit to take me on a date to cover my date.
That's as much as I can handle, but I listen to these people. Like I immediately don't know what they're saying, but I immediately hate everything about it. And so my instinct is to just go the opposite of whatever you say. I hate it and I disagree with you. Thumbs down, go away.
Her voice is a representation of reggae music, just constant.
What the hell does that have to do with reggae music? Why would you go with that?
It's just because reggae is an inversion of the way that musical rhythm is supposed to go. I thought you knew that, where it goes instead of
okay, yeah.
Up,
so
down,
they played on the
up,
upbeat.
Down, it goes down, up, down, up.
Oh, so up talking is vocal reggae.
Yeah,
I would love to have a better term than up talking, Steve. And I don't know if we can just say that's a reggae chick and we can make that catch.
Let's make it happen. Bacon cheeseburger nationalists.
Guys, we've done a couple things here. We're going to redefine your terminology. The cheeseburger nationalist position is that the up talkers are just reggae vocalists. Whoa. That's actually really heavy for today. It's a Friday, Steve. I was trying to have some fun with it. Let's just embrace the heaviness. We'll do one more thing. Apparently, the woman who encouraged the angry lesbian chick to drive over the top of the ICE officer, she had two confusing things that I actually think are mitigating circumstances for her. Number one, she didn't know that ICE used real bullets. And then she also, the other mitigation is that she actually took ownership of her actions and said, I did this. I don't know if you've seen this video yet, but this is actually kind of compelling. Those are both really, really telling moments. It explains to you the cosplay that goes on.
Exact word, it came to mind.
Carry on. Okay, explain.
She's used to engaging in a certain level of LARPing in everything in her life to such an extent that she believed truly to the pits of her soul that the law enforcement officers there were just role players, and they certainly didn't have lethal capability there within their firearms. It was stunning to her.
It really is. Okay, let's talk about why it's really dangerous to have the wrong people doing the wrong work. Let's go to the headline of the day, which I think is wild, and I found this out yesterday. I actually wasn't looking for this. This is how I know that there is a God and that he wants to deliver evil people to the American public and at least help expose them. And I accidentally am in the vessel of this in a little way. And that is not me trying to take on anything. This is 100% not me. I was having a phone call with Sonia Labasco, who called me up. And I think she actually texted me and we ended up on the phone. And she goes, is the new FBI deputy director connected to the case for Christine Crowder, the Catholic paralyzed school teacher mom who's married to a federal air marshal? And I go, I don't think so. Like, that's a pretty wild, random thing. I mean, you talk about the randomness of the world and in the FBI, there are a million cases. What are the odds that this case that just is now getting attention again is somehow connected to the guy who wanted to carry Kash Patel's hockey bag? What are the odds of that being the case? And the odds are very low, I think. And then I go, wait, she lived in Houston. And Sonia goes, yeah. And I go, he worked in Houston. And Sonia goes, yeah. And I go, oh, no. This guy was the ASAC of the National Security Branch while that case was going on. I'm going to show you guys some documents from that. Do you want to explain to people the FBI org chart? And then more specifically, Steve, how close is an ASAC to the actual work of the case? Because there are obviously people who have nothing to do with the case that are in your leadership chain of command, and it's not their fault if something's going on. You want to talk about ASACs for a second?
Yeah, well, I mean, just start from the ground and work our way up. You have the BRIC agent, the special agent, it goes up to the GS-13 rating. Those are the guys and gals who are working the cases. Then you would be on a squad. You would have an SSA, a supervisory special agent. That's your frontline supervisor. That's a GS-14. And then the next level up would be the GS-15. That's the assistant special agent in charge, ASAC, that we're referring to. And then above that's a special agent in charge, normally the top dog, unless you're talking about Washington Field Office, Los Angeles, or New York, where it goes up a little bit higher, they get an assistant director in charge. But for the other 50 plus field offices out there, the assistant special agent in charge is only 2 levels of bureaucracy above the agent working the case. And if it's a high profile case, would have knowledge of it. And they also can kind of be pigeonholed into one particular area or another, depending on the field office. They might have responsibility for criminal matters or national security matters, or maybe the goings on at the resident agencies, administrative matters. But being the national security assistant special agent in charge means that you're going to have purview over every high profile case. And there's really just not that many national security cases when you get down to it. So the odds that this guy was unaware of what was going on are slim to none.
None, no chance. So Houston's a medium-sized field office, as far as I can tell. There's only a few large ones. There's obviously some small ones. Houston's medium-sized. And I'll look up while we're sitting here talking. I probably should have done this beforehand, but we'll look up and see on the FBI Houston website how many different ASACs they have. But needless to say, like, I knew my ASAC. My ASAC popped into the office when I was in Las Cruces. I didn't much care for my ASAC, but regularly was on communications, was regularly in approvals of certain things. If you want special resources or additional, stuff for your case, then you have to ask for that. And so this guy would have 100% known what was going on there, and he was the guy there. We're going to play a little bit, but the quick story is, so people understand, I'm going to take the screen for a sec, Steve, if you need to get coffee or something. Here's the deal. Christine Crowder is married to a senior federal air marshal who was required to put surveillance on his own wife because she was in the vicinity of January 6th, but did not attend events at the Capitol that would have been problematic. And I'm going to show you how they identified her. The problem is the FBI opened a case on her simply because she was in the area. But when they did, they actually used photographs that came from the Capitol on that day. And very specifically, lest you think otherwise, they showed pictures where she was waving with her left hand high in the air and another one where it is extended out and this woman is paralyzed on her left side and has been for like over 25 years. They got a paralyzed woman who could not have physically been the person that they thought she was at the Capitol. And they ran a case on her for 2 straight years, which Kash Patel called egregious. The real problem is that they predicated this case, and I'm going to show you that as well. They predicated it on a couple of things. Negative hits on the geofence warrant, which means they did not find her phone pinging inside the area that was problematic. They also didn't find facial recognition to match to her face to the person they thought she was. So they got the wrong person. And lastly, she had a negative criminal history, so there was no reason to think she might have been a shenanigan causer. She was married to a federal air marshal, a federal law enforcement officer, and additionally, she taught school at a Catholic school. She's a mom. They grabbed someone completely at random and then ran this case for statistical accomplishments. And the guy that approved that was the ASAC, the final stop before the top agent in the office, and the one who would have the most high-level scrutiny over his program, the National Security Branch in Houston. He's now the number 2 at the FBI, which makes me think that it's kind of intentional. This is the husband. This is Mark Crowder, the federal air marshal, talking about it under congressional testimony from October of last year.
Okay, we'll try that again. Good morning, Chairman, Ranking Member Peters, and distinguished members of the committee. I'm going to start by reading a memo that I was advised to read by my management. The views I express are my own and should be construed as not representing the official policy or position of the Department of Homeland Security, Transportation Security Administration, or the United States. I've also been advised that whistleblowing is an official duty. With that being said, I'll go into my testimony. Again, my name is Mark Crowder, a senior federal air marshal with over 20 years of service protecting the American people. In those 2 decades, I have flown millions of miles to safeguard our nation. Like so many others, I answered the call to serve after the devastating attacks of September 11, 2001. Driven by an unshakable resolve to ensure such a tragedy would never happen again, at its peak, the Federal Air Marshal Service embodied the highest standards in federal law enforcement, renowned for excellence in firearms, tactics, and specialized training. Today, I come before you to report that those standards have been eroded. The agency's once clear mission has been distorted by career bureaucrats and political appointees who prioritize personal advancement over the safety of our citizens. My testimony will expose how federal law enforcement agencies sworn to protect the Americans have been weaponized to target the very people it serves. On July 15, 2021, while serving in the Houston Field Office Operations Unit, I was monitoring special mission coverage flights in our area of responsibility. To my shock, I discovered that my wife, Christine, seated behind me, had been flagged in the FAM system as a domestic terrorist, falsely accused of entering the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. I was horrified. I knew with absolute certainty that Christine was nowhere near the Capitol that day. My wife, who has a disability that prevents her from walking long distances, had simply exercised her First Amendment right to attend a rally for President Trump before returning to her hotel. As a federal air marshal with a top secret security clearance, I immediately reported the alarming designation to my supervisors, noting that according to their system, I was living with a terrorist, a clear insider threat. The special agent in charge, William Opperly, instructed me to remain silent and let the investigation run its course. Shockingly, no one expressed concerns about the potential compromise of classified information through my household. SAC Opperly was later promoted to senior positions within the agency. From July 2021 till April 2023, Christine was subjected to approximately 13 special mission coverages. Each time she flew, teams of federal air marshals surveilled her. She was barred from checking in on the airport kiosk, online, and forced to endure long waits at ticket counters for TSA's verification of her identification and to take control of her luggage. She is then subjected to invasive secondary screening at TSA security checkpoints. After the checkpoint, she is then searched again at the jetway by the TSA's Advanced Threat Local Allocation Strategy Teams, also known as ATLAS. This treatment extended to anyone traveling with her, including her elderly mother and our daughter, causing them both significant distress. In one particular disturbing instance, I was off duty flying armed with Christine. The FAM team assigned to surveil her that day had to coordinate with me, an armed federal air marshal, traveling with an alleged terrorist. How could an agency allow such a glaring operational and ethical conflict to persist? I only learned of my wife's designation because of my insider role within the agency. How many other innocent Americans have been falsely labeled as terrorists and surveilled without their knowledge? How many had their conversations, travel companions, and devices unknowingly monitored?
We're gonna move from there. That's a pretty good taste of it. This went on for 5 minutes. Obviously, his opening statement takes a few minutes. This is the story. So Rand Paul's picked it up. They announced this story and the hearings, and they've been talking about this since before Chris Raya was nominated to be the co-deputy director. They would have had to have known. They being people inside the FBI like you and I, who would know what it looks like. People who have the ability to like make a phone call and vet it like we talked about earlier.
And how about unlike Mr. Crowder, Chris Rea knows that himself. And
yeah, he would definitely know that.
Crowder said he went forward and reported himself as a potential insider threat, sort of, taking it to a level of absurdity. But Rea didn't say that up because he's just so ambitious. He wants to get to that number 2 spot so badly.
So let's read a couple of these things because some of this stuff I think is actually where the setup comes in. The FBI under the Biden administration spent 2 years investigating a Catholic school teacher, even put her on a terror watch list. She was on Quiet Skies. By the way, the person that put Tulsi Gabbard on the Quiet Skies list is getting a $40,000 plus SES bonus in short order. I reported that to a member of the Trump administration yesterday. But the same people that were causing these problems, they're still there. Christine Crowder was not at the Capitol when a mob overran the building to prevent the certification of the 2020 election, according to findings released by the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. She was, however, in Washington, D.C. for a rally with Donald Trump earlier that day, and the FBI spent 23 months tracking her for it. And during that time, the current co-deputy director of the FBI was in charge of the branch that did it. The committee chairman, which is Rand Paul, he's been notified about this information as well, called the move an overreach of federal power based on insufficient evidence. I'm going to show you how bad it was because we're going to show you the documents which have been released. A free society cannot tolerate a system in which programs and authorities intended to keep the public safe are instead weaponized against them due to mere suspicion. The records released today show how an unverified tip that the FBI failed to substantiate led to nearly 2 years of surveillance of an innocent American. And according to the timeline put out, the FBI's probe first began January of 2021 when an anonymous tipster, like so many of these were, claimed to have recognized her in news coverage. This is a former friend, allegedly. And here's where it gets interesting. Do you think that maybe the FBI director would have some thoughts on that? Would they ask him for comment?
You would hope. I mean, this was the guy that looked us in the eye and said that he was going to do away with weaponization of the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
I would hate to be able to say this. With regard to the Crowder case, the FBI director, Kash Patel, called the effort a misplaced application of the Bureau's focus and resources. And according to the Department of Homeland Security, the Quiet Skies program costs taxpayers approximately $200 million annually. You guys have listened here before. We reported that it has caught exactly 0 terrorists. None. It has never done that. This is what Patel said, quote, "This is an example of misplaced priorities and everything that went wrong with federal law enforcement in the aftermath of January 6th. And because this was an example of everything that went wrong in the aftermath, they decided to promote a guy who signed off on it." And so here we go. Here are the documents that you are seeing on the screen. Does this look familiar, Steve?
Yeah, especially the redactions.
Okay, so this is coming from the Counterterrorism Division. This is the opening EC, or electronic communication. Folks, this is how it gets done. We're going to go through this EC, at least the parts that are relevant. There are about 66 pages of it. We're not going to touch all of them, but we will kind of key in on a few things that I think are of interest. Before we do, I'm going to remind you guys, you can support us by just giving us the thumbs up. If you guys like this kind of stuff in these long forms, this is what we do. So Rumble, give us a like. We're still bumping up on our leaderboard. We were in the top 30, I think, yesterday. YouTube, same thing. You guys are great about doing it, but please do so now. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do. You can notify if you want to see when we go live, which generally speaking is 9:30 Eastern time, unless, of course, our computers crash for no particular reason. And we have Steve Friend on, and we're about to do these kind of exposés on senior federal officials. God forbid we do that. You may hear a Spotify ad right now. And that is to say that if you're not watching on Spotify, they're the ones who host the podcast. It's the best place you can go see it. So check them out at KyleSeraphinShow.com. Just type that in. It'll take you directly there. I don't even think you need to download it, and you can get access to, the most important part of it, which is that you can actually get the video and the audio, and you may want to read some of these documents with us as we go through it. Steve, we are about to open it up. All right, so this was approved by an SSA supervisor. This guy here, who's this?
Assistant Chief Division Counsel, or Acting Chief Division
I think
Counsel.
This is an Acting Chief Division Counsel.
Yep.
So this means that there was a litigious move to be able to make sure that the attorneys approved of this case, folks. The CDC is like who calls balls and strikes for the FBI, by the FBI, inside the FBI.
It's like an in-house attorney you go to.
Mm-hmm. General, like in-house counsel, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then you've got an acting ASAC. So my guess is that whoever was the ASAC at that time probably did not, probably wasn't filling that role. And then this gentleman here, Mr. Raya, stepped into it afterwards. Okay, so we've got Christine Janet Crowder. That tells you who the subject is. How about this one right here? We've seen that before.
266 Oscar, anti-government extremist designation.
Okay, which also was code for MAGA. We've got here is a 176 out of Washington field office.
Riot case. Even though it's a criminal matter, the FBI said that the 176, which was all the J6 cases that were criminal, were still technically national security, so we have to boost our terrorist stats there. And I can't help but notice immediately to the right of that is a sensitive investigative matter. That's a SIM.
That's why you had the CDC involved.
It also would require coordination with the Department of Justice. So there's another half dozen people involved.
And SIMs get regularly briefed more frequently than non-SIM cases, which means this would have been something on the radar of the ASAC working there.
Oh, the special agent in charge would definitely want to know what's going on here.
I wonder if, I don't know if I see the articulation for the SIM, but you've got field CDC has approved the underlying predication. This is a failure at every single level of what is supposed to happen, by the way. These systems are supposed to be in place so that you don't have this. They have a criminal caption investigation. Caption investigation just means a field investigation initiated based on photographic and or video evidence that Christine J. Crowder unlawfully entered the United States Capitol building, a restricted building, on January the 6th, 2021, violation of federal laws. There you go. CDC approved. So the attorneys say, yes, this is good to go. Predication, here you have it. They have secure video. The exterior of the plaza is closed to members of the public. These are just statements of facts. There was a joint session of convicts.
For all the J6 cases.
Yeah, all of these had the same thing. Joint session was underway. There's Mike Pence. So these are all background things on January 6th. We're going to basically scroll through all this stuff because it's not particularly relevant. She was identified by a tipster using FBI.gov/US Capitol online portal. I told you guys these things were full of bullshit leads, and they were in fact full of bullshit leads. Here's what the tipster said. Quote, "We were aware of one of our former friends who was supposedly on site during the Capitol invasion. I recently reviewed a video at this Facebook post where it appears that Christine Crowder, blank, is exiting the Capitol at 25-second mark into the video. Christine's Facebook profile, there's a link to the event on January 6th, as well as a profile picture showing her in the same hat and glasses." Guilty.
I had the exact same thing come in to my office in Daytona. I mean,
and was this the guy that
tips that were on their face not actionable, right? I had an anonymous tip. This person was at January 6th. Facial recognition was negative. The cell phone dump was negative. So we had no actual evidence outside of an anonymous tip that the person was there. And yet you're going to go and investigate this person. When if you actually knocked on the door and they said, yeah, it was me, I was there, they could be a crazy person. There's no substantiating evidence other than their own admission of it. So no reasonable prosecutor would actually bring that case.
What was the result of the one that you said had negative hits on all the information?
I said I shouldn't go, and I was told that I had to go, otherwise the task force in Washington, D.C. would just continue to harass us. So I went out there and knocked on the guy's door and said, were you there? And he said, no, because that was the day of my son's funeral. So I made him relive that. That would seem to be weaponizing the process.
Just to be clear, he wasn't there because he was burying his son. That's slightly better than a puppy's alibi, most people think.
I think there would probably be witnesses.
Right. Okay, cool. So in this case, also, same scenarios you just described, I'm going to show you here. You want to read the initial findings right there, Steve? I'll highlight them for people on the screen.
Geofence checks, negative. TTK facial recognition checks, negative. Criminal history checks, negative. Over 3. I don't think you're hitting the 1,000 batting average that Dan Bongino likes to tout.
Yeah, the writer reviewed the video listed above, ABC 13, Houston, Facebook. The writer observed a white female that resembles the other photos of the captioned subject. That's just how we say who the person is that the investigation is into. It exits what appears to be the Capitol building with the phrase, "murder the media," apparently carved into the door. The subject can be observed exiting the building.
Did she carve it?
No. It just said that, so that was inflammatory.
Okay.
So we just put some
setting
information.
up atmospherics like it's a WAPO article.
Now you can see the subject is observed exiting. So they're already saying that it is the subject, by the way. They're saying it is her. Observed exiting the building. So they're presuming that this is the person. Capitol Police officer holding the door. Oh, wait, holding the door open for several people? That can't be the case. The Capitol Police officer was holding the door open for several people as they exited? Weird. Okay. So anyway, the subject wearing a red ball cap that reads "Keep America Great," dark narrow rim glasses, long brown hair, puffy brown jacket, blue backpack over right shoulder with what appears to be a North Face brand strap. Open search shows Christine Crowder in the Facebook page. Christine Leonardo matches the results. Other open source searches.
How does she match the results?
Nobody knows. Let's continue on because this is the best part.
Match.
She's employed at St. Edward's School, according to her LinkedIn account. They can tell that she flew there. She had the ARC database shows that she traveled from Houston to Washington, D.C., 1-4, and returned on 1-7 aboard the following flights. It revealed that she lives close to St. Edward's Catholic School in Spring, Texas, which is a suburb of Houston. Online search the faculty website revealed no results. Caption subject does not appear to conform to any particular ideology or extremist groups. No prior military service revealed at this time. She will be interviewed as video shows a person closely matching her description is clearly exiting the U.S. Capitol. Here's the potential violations.
They didn't get around to that interview for 2 years.
Wait a minute. Pertinent, sensitive, investigative matters. There are no known sensitive investigative matters.
Just
so
that
why
her
was it a
husband
sin?
is a fan.
That's really weird. Watch list status. Crowder participated in the illegal, they just stated as a fact, participated in the illegal entry to the United States Capitol with the intent of interrupting the congressional proceedings. These actions resulted in the death of a federal law enforcement officer and multiple injuries of officers.
Incorrect.
Yeah, certainly we know that no federal officers were killed there. The damage to the United States Capitol based on her involvement. The Houston field office recommends Crowder for watch listing and selectee status. This is going to be all underneath the same program that the now current number 2 at the FBI was observing and running. Unless you guys don't know what I'm talking about. Let's see here. I think I have his stuff. Let me wait a second here. I thought I had his
the old press release of him getting appointed, the ADIC.
There you go. There's the press release right there. So that's Christopher G. Riot. He was named the ADIC of the New York field office. You can tell that he was in charge of the National Security Branch in Houston, Texas, the field office in Houston. And that started in 2021. Obviously, January 2021 was the beginning. So wherever he took over, this case was actually opened. If we go back to the beginning of it, it was actually opened on 6/25. Actually, it's I'll flip it. I'll show you in 1 second here. But 6/25 of 2021, so June. So as long as he was there, he could have been there when it was started, and he could have been away for the day. But there's no question in my mind that he was there for the next 2 years, which is what you read as well in his press release. By 2023, he was asked to move into a new executive role. He was the chief of staff for the executive assistant director of national security at the time, who was Larissa Knapp, who was also like a world-class piece of shit.
Larissa, she's good people.
Larissa's good people. Just a good dude. Okay, so here you go. There's a 6/25/2021. And so here they are watch listing this woman with the information as necessary. And here's the problem. We're going to get into physical surveillance starting in a 1 week into the case. They're doing spot checks. They're identifying the vehicles. They're doing the database for the house and see who owns it, finds the legal residence. So they're establishing that they know who she is. So that's all fun. We're going to kind of scroll through some of this stuff. This is all kind of just like database checks.
Database checks that the OST is putting in there.
Pretty normal. There you have your TSA watch list. So she was put on there. She's now listed as a known suspected terrorist encounter. Guys, no big deal. I'm going to type in law enforcement. So we're going to look for that. We got law enforcement sensitive. The question is can we find? No, we cannot. Any indication that they knew that the husband was in fact a law enforcement officer? They don't mention that. There's also no mention of the fact that he's a federal air marshal. I looked through the whole case earlier. If you guys type in, I can do a little search here. But FAMs is usually what you would call it. That's not there. Air marshals. Also, no, there's no thing. So I'm doing the searches just so you guys can see that like they make no reference to the fact that her husband is a freaking federal law enforcement officer.
And I guess when he self-reported, I mean, you could attribute that to a certain level of incompetence. Nobody looked for marriage records in all of these database checks. Find that hard to believe, but let's just go with it. He self-reported that, hey guys, just so you know, you have my wife as a potential terrorist, so that would make me a potential insider threat. So I just want to self-report that to you. And that wasn't communicated over to the FBI. I think that they just said, well, just let it play out because I'm a special agent in charge here of this area as a FAM, a federal air marshal, and I don't want this static to intrude into my career prospects, my trajectory. So we'll just let it play out. And then when Kyle Seraphin actually interviews Sonia Labasco and it goes on his podcast, then we have to clean up in aisle 6 and we go and actually do the interview 2 years later after the investigation has begun.
Here we go. On December 29th, they entered in that there was a TSOU, that's the Terrorist Screening Operations Unit, have determined that she is going to travel, or that she did travel. And so she departed and went to New York, back to Houston. So they've got her on there on the 26th through the 27th. She did a flight. So they got coverage on that. The FAMs were doing their own thing. And here's the best part. Triage Toolkit was provided by the tipster. The video shows Christine Crowder exiting the Capitol. The following screenshots are taken from the video. This is what I'm going to hone in on, folks. This is where it gets super fun for me. Right here on the screen where I've got the cursor. What do you see there, Steve?
Looks like a left arm, sort of a parallel to the ground.
Would you imagine that that's what somebody who's paralyzed on the left side would be able to do?
If it had been propped up against an arm rest, otherwise no.
Okay, fine. Well, maybe she's got limited mobility, like below the waist or like right at the waist level. What about this one? Oh no, look at that. There she is. Could that be the same lady?
It would appear she has the same puffy jacket, but that's it. So doesn't have the mobility issues that Ms. Crowder does. So I think we're done here, right? It's over.
One would
we
think.
don't need to fly 13 special missions.
So the problem with this is, folks, is that after we did the discussion, the fact that she was a air marshal's wife, which maybe they didn't even know because it's not noted in the file, and it's really possible they actually didn't know that they failed that dramatically and that air marshals were not talking to the FBI. So let's assume that that was the case, given the benefit of the doubt. The second problem is they went out and interviewed her the day after we did a podcast with Sonia Labasco talking about this egregious use of the Quiet Skies program. And the agent, we were told, Christine talked to Sonia Labasco. Labasco explained it to me. She came on the program and said it a couple days later. The agent said, did you hurt yourself? Are you okay? And she said, what do you mean? And he said, looks like you're kind of stiff on that side as you walk around. And she said, no, I've been paralyzed for 26 years.
So the surveillance was suboptimal, we'll say?
Suboptimal, not noting that there's like a physical problem with this person, which everybody noticed, including the agent who went to go interview her for the first time. They had no idea. And once you see that, you must imagine, because he's been looking at this for a long time. The agent who's doing this interview has been looking at this picture and is like, we're going to go out there, we're going to jam her up, and then we're going to get our arrest warrant. We're going to go do a complaint, and we'll hit him with SWAT because the husband has guns. And then suddenly you realize, holy shit, this lady has been paralyzed for almost 3 decades, and there's no possibility we have the right person. We're so sorry for being in the wrong space. Good thing that nobody knows about this thing. Oh shit, Kyle Seraphin actually already exposed this out loud.
This is just like that couple from Alaska that was accused of stealing Nancy Pelosi's laptop.
It's the same exact case. You got the wrong person because you were too excited to get it done, and you got the wrong person. You weren't even close.
Yeah.
Because they had the same jacket, like more than one jacket was made.
I've talked to that couple before. And again, like the sun never sets on the suspendables. I know the case agent for that case.
These are... Yeah, of course. So here, these are the them explaining. They're doing a transcripted thing. This is happening in 2022, almost a year after the case is opening. Now they are actually doing the timeline from what they find on the video cameras. They're explaining what's in the video cameras of not Christine Crowder, but they keep calling it Christine Crowder ends into view. These are 302s as far as I could tell, are they not?
She's a terrorist, and they waited a year to work out the timeline.
They didn't even worry about that. Yeah, and they're doing surveillance on here, so we'll show you another surveillance that pops up. Here you go. This is a spot check. Physical surveillance was conducted. This is probably somebody wanted to go to lunch early and then leave home, so they went, and at 12:45, they arrived at the location and saw it. They were there until 2. That's an hour and 15 minutes. They concluded without seeing her, so they just gave up and left. That's not how you do surveillance, by the way. Ask me how I know. So there you go. Now they're re-reviewing the triage toolkit, and they're doing the timeline of what happened. They're just over and over doing the same work. And they're pretending like this is real. This is really, really bad. And again, Kash Patel said this is an example of the word. Hold on, should we go back to his actual words?
Misallocation?
This is an example of the misplaced priorities that went wrong with federal law enforcement in the aftermath of January 6th, he said. And now they have promoted that guy who was the ASAC running the small little division, the small little branch, rather, out of Houston that did this case. He's the number 2. What does that say about your ability to vet your own employees there, Steve, friend?
I'll go back to the term suboptimal. You probably would have benefited from having a cast of characters who were more knowledgeable about the inner workings of the agency that you were going into and had zero connection to or knowledge of other than the people that you happened to cross paths with in New York, which is why Kash Patel is constantly saying and promoting New York people, because the New York Mafia is a thing. But serious question back to you. Chris Rea, obviously good German, right? Just followed orders, very ambitious. Would his promotion to co-deputy director of the FBI still be superior to Dan Bongino because he actually needed the money, whereas Dan Bongino just ankle grabbed for funsies?
For motive, I think yes, but for functionality to the American people, I think no. At least Dan Bongino didn't know what he was doing when he was there. Having someone who knows,
he can plead ignorance.
And yeah, he can plead ignorance. This guy can only plead that I just do what the FBI wants me to do. He's a true blue, bureau do.
He goes to watch the director play hockey scrimmages.
Wait, is that real? Is that a real thing? That's a real picture. That came from Instagram, folks. That's a real Instagram picture.
And now he's had to open up a social media account because the boss told him that he
The best thing in the world, and here's how I know, this is why I say I think that God is delivering this information into our hands. And this is not like a Candace Owens moment where like, God spoke to me. No, I'm just telling you, the odds that yesterday I get a phone call about Sonia Labasco asking me, hey, can you look over this case and see if there's a possibility that the new deputy director of the FBI is tied to it? And the answer was like, holy crap, yeah, in fact, he is. He has to be. He was the one running the national security branch in Houston when it happened. That's pretty wild. And then she goes, well, what do you want to do about it? I said, well, we'll talk about it on the podcast. I'm sure maybe I'll bring it up with Steve Friend. Like I'll go do some groundwork on it. So I'll start, grabbing some documents, some screenshots and so on. And then an hour and a half later, I get notification. Kash Patel says, follow the FBI director, the new co-deputy director. It's the account is at FBI DD Raya. And I'm like, holy crap. He has a social media account. I was his 64th follower over on X.
Wow.
I was one of the first people to find the guy because I have notifications for Patel. And I'm like, oh, well, now I can tag him on X and ask him questions. And I'm going to ask him the simple question. Do you have any comment on this egregious use and misplacement of resources that you were participating in? Here's the interview of Christine Crowder. And so this is a classic 302. Do you want to explain the opening and kind of like what people are seeing here in May of 2023?
So a 302 is basically like the police report for the FBI. You would use this particular document to memorialize an interview or surveillance or an arrest. Like that's just the umbrella term. And you would write it as a contemporaneous recollection of the information that was shared because the FBI isn't required to actually audio record. Now, you would put in a note in there that it was audio recorded if it was. I don't see that preamble, though, so I think it's just all going off of the good men and women of the FBI, pinky swear, mega Doppler integrity that they're going to share just the facts.
We got a real problem with this, too, because they redacted the names of the agents as usual.
They're secret agents.
They're secret
agents,
agents,
for the
right?
Department of Agriculture.
So they redacted PII and then the name of public federal employees who did public federal interviews in public, which was not happening in a classified setting or something that was, something they couldn't have done. So Crowder flew to Washington, D.C., Houston, January 4. She arranged to attend the rally with 2 female friends, but she flew separately from them. She was unable to reserve a hotel room for 3 days, and she reserved a room in a different hotel than her friends. On the morning of January 6th, she got up early and attempted to link up with her friends. She was unsuccessful in reaching up with her friends and assumed that her friends had already departed to attend the rally, so she left alone. She became emotional at the hotel and she wasn't sure what to do. Crowder was approached by two females who were sympathetic to Crowder and asked if she wanted to join them. They went to the rally around 6 a.m. and waited there until Donald Trump's speech began. She was frustrated with the speech. It was supposed to start at 10, but it didn't start until 11. This is, by the way, how all these things go. They're just rambling, talking about what the person said. Interviewing agents asked Crowder if she had photos of herself taken on January 6th. She provided the agents with a photo showing her wearing a Trump 45 beanie, a black jacket. That seems problematic. I thought it was brown. A white scarf, and with black stripes on it, and a brown UGG-style boots.
She's such a criminal mastermind terrorist that she took photographs of herself committing the terrorism and kept them on her phone.
Now, that happened on Jan 6, but then she retrieved the jacket and the scarf from her bedroom and showed them to the interviewing agents. These are my favorite things. The
She's
show
not
and
like
tells.
Brian Cole, who threw it out in the trash. Yeah.
Right. She actually has them. Okay. Following the speech, she tried to contact her friends again to link up. Eventually, she began walking on Constitution Avenue. She eventually made contact with the friends, informed her they were on the way. They were on Constitution Avenue. She located them, but again, was unsuccessful. She tried to find a restaurant to eat at, but it was difficult because the amount of people were taking up space. I thought there weren't very many people there. They were occupying the street and the businesses. Her phone was nearly dead. She stepped into a Starbucks to charge it. This is so fun. She ultimately thought about
the teenager who got caught coming home late is just giving you so much information.
Right.
But in this case, she's actually telling the truth.
She's telling the truth, and they're writing all of it because they need to have something for the file for why they've been investigating this woman for coming up on like 2 years at this point. She thought she would go further down the street to the Capitol, but ultimately decided to call a Lyft, which you could easily prove, and then return home to the hotel where she stayed for the remainder of the evening. The Lyft car dropped her off at approximately the Tuckstone Gallery in New York, approximately 2:30. And from there, she walked to her hotel. She showed an e-receipt for the Lyft showing that she had completed the ride at 2:28
She alibies
p.m.
herself.
On the morning of January 7th, she checked out of her hotel and she took the Lyft car to Dulles where she boarded and she flew back home. Case closing comes next.
Oh, hey, before we get to the case closing, do you think the interviewing agent tried to do the FBI Academy read technique and said, look, we've been talking for a while. I know all about the breakfast. I know you did it. Don't you want to tell me you did it? Or do they just go, oh, crap, we are so screwed right
Apparently, they went, oh, crap, when they got there because they realized that she was disabled and she's visibly disabled. When she moved, she was on Brianna Morell's show a couple of days ago. And you can tell, like, she just doesn't have functionality on the left side. She could have never raised that left hand. And if those agents were reviewing it, if they were thinking like, hey, I know this is you. And then they notice the lady like walks with like a damn, like a limp left side, you'd be like, oh shit, that's not you. Did something happen? Did you hurt yourself? I think they asked her if she fell recently. And she was like, no, I had a stroke and I've had this for 26 years. I think that's the story as I recall it.
I mean, did they show her their credentials when they arrived upside down?
I hope so. All right, so here you go. Closing EC, folks, is the closing of this case. This is the embarrassment that it is. The Houston FBI opened a full investigation into Christine Janet Crowder. By the way, she told Sonia that she would come on this program, so we're going to interview her, and we'll go through the case with her and what she knew and what she didn't know and what it was like flying around having your husband be a person that looks for terrorists and then your husband's colleagues looking for you. The tipster provided the following, quote, we were aware of one of our former friends. You guys saw that blank, and then they blank out this stuff, including they blanked out video that appears now. That Christine Crowder
qualifiers have arrived.
They have arrived in the closing. Yeah. Christine's Facebook post file. There's a link to the event, January 6th. After completing pertinent checks to identify selectors associated with Crowder, the FBI found no evidence that she definitively entered the Capitol building. Reviewing the footage both inside and outside did not positively identify Crowder, despite the previous things they said. A geofence query was performed on the captioned subject's known cell phone number, which returned negative results. They had this on day one, by the way, folks. A face search and human search was performed on the subject, which returned the possible misidentification of the subject. Our bad. Sorry about that. The human team did not return anything conclusive that was resulting in the subject was seen entering the Capitol by any security cameras or any eyewitness. Nobody could say that she was actually there. We did this based on an internet tip. This is why the FBI is a problem, and it continues to be a problem. The writer interviewed Crowder at her home. She provided the writer with photos and video of her activities. On January the 6th, she advised she was indeed in D.C. on January 6th, but never stepped onto the Capitol grounds. The writer was able to identify specific articles of clothing worn by Crowder according to photos that she provided. This clothing was inconsistent with the images provided by the original tip. What they don't say is that she was freaking physically impossible to be the person that they thought. She was also, the writer was able to view timestamps of video and photographs located on her phone. This is how the puppy's alibi is really supposed to go. At the time Crowder was supposedly exiting the Capitol, she was elsewhere in D.C. Kind of like Brian Cole was elsewhere in D.C. when they thought he was dropping pipe bombs. No big deal. Additionally, the writer was able to show an online receipt where Crowder ordered a passenger car service. The route of the passenger car viewable in the receipt is consistent with her account of movements in D.C. In light of this new evidence, which should have been day one evidence, they should have never even opened it, the writer recommends closing the caption matter.
What was the date of the
Bro, there's a
closing,
Delta
you see?
cereal in here.
Wow. So, I mean,
So here's the deal. Guys, this is probably the part that I didn't even realize was that damning, because I scrolled through this yesterday and I didn't realize this. Let me tell you what this is. This, Ryan Riley, if you're listening, this is what happens when the sedition hunters get exposed. An FD 1023 made big news in maybe last year or the year before when people started realizing how FBI source reporting goes. I actually didn't realize this was in here. Confidential human source reporting document, Delta serial. Delta is the system the FBI uses to log all of the people that are informants for the Bureau. What you have here is a CHS provided a photograph of Christine Janet Crowder at the rally January 6, 2021. That CHS is most likely one of the sedition hunters, is actually not a real person that knows anything about her, didn't have any access, didn't have any placement, and actually got the wrong fucking person. And they included this in there, and they probably paid that person, if I had to guess, because that's what we understand was going on.
That's what doesn't make sense, because they had somebody contact the FBI and say, this was one of my old friends, and yet they were signed up as a source. So either they just, on their own initiative, signed the person up as a source and lied on the documents to sign them up and say, oh yeah, I totally admonished them because they had to claim a source, or they lied in the original opening and that's not really a friend. This
is the craziest part of all this so far. I mean, other than the fact that the current deputy director of the FBI actually was the guy who oversaw the this investigation. This is really wild. Enclosed are Crowder at rally number 2 PNG, a photograph from someone misidentifying. And this is the problem with sources. They're not always right. This is what they showed.
They just curated.
They decided that these are the same people, by the way.
No, you can't definitively do that at all. That's not even a good picture on the left.
The pants are not the same. The jacket is not the same. The hat is not the same. The hair is not the same color. I can't see the woman's face to say any more than that.
Yeah, her face is obstructed in the baseline photo that's on the left. That's of actually Christine Crowder. I mean,
yeah, look at the baseline photo where, guess what? The arm on the left is hanging limp. She's only using her right arm. Holy crap, man. So this is sedition hunters. This is a sedition hunters inject into here. Yeah, the bag is not the same. The backpack's not the same.
So it potentially could be that a former friend reported it and then they went to try to double source it from the sedition hunters.
I'm almost positive that's what they did, because that's what they did on all these things. They got anonymous complaints. Maybe somebody who didn't like you in high school decided to say that you were a jerk, and then they went and got the professional sources at the sedition hunters to go and do this stuff.
Many of which were not operating in the United States.
Right. Yeah, they were operating overseas. Guys, are you getting it? You see how dumb and bad and scary this is, and why this is a problem? I think they do. I'm just saying. Because there's the new face of the FBI's senior management, a guy who managed to skip past a whole bunch of stuff to be able to get there. And can we just throw this on the screen real quickly again? I want to read this to you, Steve. It's pretty telling. Kash Patel is the guy who promoted him to New York. Again, he was the guy that went in and kind of like solved the problem for the DEI hire that they had that was giving speeches only 1 year ago, January of 2025, when there was a guy tried to run people over in a terrorist attack in New Orleans. You remember that one?
Yeah, Alethea Duncan with the nose ring.
So he replaced her and showed up and did a decent job of making the Bureau look okay. And so he started in 2003. He reported to the Texas City Resident Agency outside of Houston. So that's where he was at. 10 years doing regular FBI work, violent crime, doing random white collar and drugs and gangs.
That's more than most. I mean, you're halfway into a career and you decide to go management. I have no problem with that.
There's no chance that this guy gets promoted to deputy director in under 20 years or in 22 years. That's not a thing that can happen, except he just hit the jackpot where he jumped up and managed to get Kash Patel, who has no idea what's going on. And they actually saved the FBI from kind of a PR disaster. So 2014, he went to be the supervisory resident agent. Says that before that in 2012, he went to headquarters, did CTD. So he went from his entire time of doing criminal. Then he goes up to headquarters and decides to do not criminal. That's not a terrible thing, but it just means you don't know the violation.
He's trying to get a wide variety in his career, build up his resume. I get it, but it's also indicative of the FBI just views, you're a gun and badge toter.
You're all
So
the same.
therefore, like you're a cog, you can just go do something else, even though you don't know anything about it.
So 9 years, first supervisory role, probably did the 18-month TDY to headquarters like a lot of guys did back then. I'm just speculating there, but that's usually what goes on. Oversees international terrorism, so he gets his national security vet. Then 2014, he becomes the SSRA out in Bryant, so he goes back to the residency of Houston. So he goes from being south. Texas City is a shitty place to live. It's like where oil refineries are. It's near Galveston. Then you go on the north side. Now you're in the college area. That's okay. Then ends up being named in 2020 the assistant special agent in charge of the Houston field office, initially for violent crime, and then within a year moves over to the national security branch where the real promotions were happening under Chris Wray. All the national security people were getting promoted, and he was there until 2023. This case started in 2021 and it ended in 2023. We'll go right back to it real quickly. Just one more time. We take a last look. They closed this closing EC was on June of 2023. So the majority of the time that this case was open, it was under his purview as a sim for no particular sensitive reason.
No, I don't know. I mean, I have to think it's because of the husband, but that's not even notated in the file. You'd have to justify it being a sim to begin with.
Well, this is an example of mispriced priorities and everything that went wrong with federal law enforcement in the aftermath of January 6th. And that is why we had to promote the guy that wanted to carry my hockey bag for me and hung out with me when I went to go play on the ice with my friendsies.
This is not a serious country. That these are the top two that are running this organization. I mean, the only hope we have now is that Andrew Bailey, who doesn't know anything about the FBI, just has better judgment because he's unwilling to open up a Twitter account. Like, that's the best that we have. I think that you're a black pillar from what you just said there, Steve. Can you address the possibility of your black pill nature? I'm going to have to counter that because I believe I'm the only one who's in our cohort, the only member of the Suspendables who hasn't been blocked by Dan Bongino yet.
Why not? What are you, a Fed?
I'm doing the best I can to get the block. I covet the block, but
do you?
For the time being, he still follows me.
What does that even mean? Okay, so here's the thing, buddy. I'm still concerned because the other day we played it, and I'm going to play it one more time, and I didn't get your reaction yet. Dan finally did come clean about what shook him to his core, why he's going to never be the same. I know why I'm never going to be the same. I'll never be the same because I saw what the FBI will do to people in the FBI. I suspect that you, as the only suspendable who's been hired twice and fired twice, allegedly, that's kind of a special thing. So you could probably have some things that you'll never be the same. You might have been shaken to your core for all I know. Do you remember what shook Dan Bongino to his core?
It was something that he put out on social media about having read something.
He just read some files, man. I mean, I could be shaken just from reading what I just read. There are literally no guardrails. Listen to how funny it is that applied. They just put somebody in the place of Dan Bongino who was so worried he'll never be the same because the guardrails failed. Now one of the guardrails who failed is actually the number 2.
To solving the case.
That is not the Dan Bongino clip I was looking for. Filibuster for a minute. Doggone it.
A face for radio and a voice for print is always what you can reliably get at Just the News. Look, Dan Bongino made it very clear when he went into the FBI that he had a certain priority list. We can even put Epstein apart from it right now because that was just such a colossal mistake. He guaranteed us the Dobbs leaker, which isn't illegal. He guaranteed us the White House cocaine person, didn't deliver that, and Secret Service actually was supposed to be in charge of that. He guaranteed us the pipe bomb, which we've now, in quite a bit of detail, shown how Brian Cole is clearly not the individual. But then there was that whole time in the middle of the summer when he was talking about how, something here has shaken me to my core. And everybody was like, all right, what's it going to be? Are we finally going to get transparency? And we not only didn't get that, but now that he's left the FBI, and he's going to be, strike me down, Darth, and I'll become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. He's going to do more now from the outside than he did from the inside, which if logic holds, then Donald Trump should resign as president, and then he can make America great again. He's going to tell us really what shook him to his core on February 2nd, or I don't know, from one of his other Silverlock shows that he's trying to promote. And
I'm looking forward to it. I also think he's probably going to take a couple shots at us, which I look forward to. I saved this as Bombshell. I would have thought I saved it as The Moment, which I have another one. The moment when he realized it was Brian Cole Jr. and not all the things that he'd said for all the years that he'd been saying that the pipe bomber was somehow connected to the government. It was an inside job. No. This was the Bombshell revelation, which took place. And I use that in air quotes because it's funny, from the Vince show the other day, which is also known as the Dan Bongino press release.
I'm sitting there on a Friday night,
And it was late. I don't know. It was like 7 o'clock or something like that. And the security detail and my security detail and me, we were the only ones left. It's a Friday. It's 7 o'clock. Work hours end at 5, unless there's usually something going on. 5:30, 6 people roll out. And it was basically about Crossfire. I was just reading some stuff about Crossfire, and I had to tell you, I was blown away. And I think it was the next morning I actually sent that out. I think it was a Saturday. If you go back and look at the date on it, I'm pretty sure it was a Saturday. Because I remember just going back that night. I was by myself. I said staring at the four walls. I meant the apartment. So I lived in this kind of tiny apartment in D.C., but it was a nice looking place, whatever. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, I couldn't believe this had happened. Like that I shouldn't say, I couldn't believe it happened here.
Right.
Vince, like having been a Secret Service agent, a police officer, and I hadn't been in the FBI role that long, but it had been a few months. Yeah, again, you have to go back and date the tweet. It wasn't. I didn't get there last week at that point, so I had seen enough. I just thought, gosh, these guardrails just broke down because of people. Just people are guardrails, not robots. I mean, I love Tesla, but Tesla robots are guardrails. Human beings are guardrails. People.
What is he saying there, Steve?
He sounds like Christine Crowder being interviewed by an FBI agent who's just doing vocal diarrhea all over the place to filibuster as long as possible.
Look, he really likes Tesla robots and he thinks they're great, but they're not people. And I don't know if you know this, but I mean, I live in a nice apartment. It's a small apartment, but it's a nice apartment.
Nice.
People who come here don't think it's not nice. I mean, they think this is a pretty decent apartment as far as apartments go. But I mean, it is an apartment, and it is. Anyway, I was just sitting there looking at those walls, not the walls of my office where people would accuse me of not doing work. I was working when I was at the work, and I was there really late. I don't know if you guys know this, but 7 o'clock. Sometimes I would work as late as 7 o'clock, even on a Friday. A lot of people don't work on 7 o'clock on Friday if they're in the federal government, but I do. What was the point of that story? I was just I got lost in the details. There's so much going on.
I think that was the point. You got lost in the details. He read something about a thing that he got famous about, which was Russiagate, Crossfire Hurricane.
Okay.
And then he just thought about how great he was about reporting that and going out on that limb. And because that's why he was reading that story. He didn't want to delve into it and find out really what happened. He just wanted to reminisce about how awesome he was.
He was awesome.
And then he said, I'm going to go out there and
what are the guardrails?
Use my primary weapon, which is the Twitter. And that's probably why he left, because you can't block anybody from a government account, and now we can.
What were the guardrails that they failed? But who or what are guardrails in this story?
I think it's personnel.
Oh, I thought we did total personnel warfare. I was pretty sure that was what was happening. Was there warfare or was there no warfare?
I mean, they may have fired a low triple-digit number of people at the FBI. You're truly included in that. So it's been just a bloodletting there in the last 12 months.
You are one of the 138. And by the way, I saw that as DOJ wide, so that's not a lot. At least they let this guy stick around, this guardrail that kept Christine Crowder safe from completely misidentifying her and wasting 2 years of FBI investigation, including 13 special missions by the Quiet Skies program as she was delegated or delineated to be a terrorist, a lot like Tulsi Gabbard, who now serves in the administration as the most prominent person in the entire intelligence community for the United States. She went from being a watch-listed terrorist under Quiet Skies to being she's the director of the Office of National Intelligence.
Yeah, she's supposed to be upsetting the apple cart within the intelligence community. And then you have misdemeanor terrorist Steve Baker, who might have brought down one of the greatest conspiracies in the history of the government. And those two were both identified as threats to our democracy.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb here, Steve, and I'm going to suggest to the audience that you are, in fact, a Fed. If you are not blocked by Bongino at this point, you are a Fed, and it is proof positive. It's you and Milo Yiannopoulos that are both on my radar. So I'm watching you there, MFer. How you like that?
Well, look, Milo and I mean, the Venn diagram doesn't overlap very often, but I suppose we have that.
That's so good. All right, plug AMRAD. You're doing one today. Did I just, you got something coming up today?
American Radicals Podcast, 12 o'clock today. Join us on rumble.com/AmRadPod, YouTube, The American Radicals Podcast. Going to be talking about the Pentagon Papers and the Supreme Court basically saying the Fourth Amendment doesn't exist anymore. I got some concerns about the old story about Ben Franklin. He said, "Madam, I left you a republic if you can keep it." I don't think we're going to make it on the current trajectory. So it's going to be black pills, but I do have a fun palate cleanse to make you laugh into the weekend. Thanks for joining me today, guys, there, and I'll see you there.
There you go. All right. So if you guys are watching on either YouTube, if you're watching on X, or if you're watching over on Rumble, make sure you follow Steve. Follow him live if you can. Follow him after the fact if you like. Steve, thanks for joining me. And everybody in the chat now knows that you're a Fed. So that's fun. I hope you have a great weekend, bud.
You too. See you guys.
All right. Let's do a palate cleanse. We need something. What if they were just like, I don't know, grown-ups that could just straighten out things and tell people that false ideas are false? I got 3 of them for you as we go into the weekend. Can we have a little laugh and a smile? One of them is political. One of them is just media-oriented. And then one of them is just weird as shit. And I just think it's funny because we're all kind of at that point where if you try to screw with us about what we're eating at this point, if you go down to the last little refuge that we have, we're coming at you. So let's start with maybe a support group for retards.
I picked up a trash can, threw it through a laundromat window, like I've done dozens of times. This time was different. This time I got arrested, and the feds tear gassed me. No media coverage, nobody calling me a hero. What's up with that?
That sounds like justice.
Or fascism.
You think getting arrested for vandalism is fascism?
Is it? I don't know what fascism means. Was that it?
No.
Do you know if Donald Trump was behind your arrest? Because if he was, it sounds pretty fascist to me. Should I tweet about it? I'm going to tweet about it.
No, don't.
Can't. Trump canceled my cell service. Can I borrow someone's phone? To save the country.
Okay, Alex, Hot Carl, you're not a part of any resistance. You're just shitty people, and you need to start taking responsibility for that.
That would be great. Somebody could tell these people, including the fat, angry guy in Minnesota, you're just shitty people. You're not what you think you are. At least we have fun, serious news people, and also people who can parody fun, serious news people. They should be watching all the clickbait that's going online. Kash Patel would probably want to censor this, but this is Tucker Carlson saying things, I think, about Middle Earth, which makes me very happy. This is a fake Tucker Carlson. This is not real. This is an impression.
Do you know that magic rings really aren't that harmful? More dwarves are responsible for fatalities than any magic ring has ever caused when you think about it. There's really not that many magic rings to begin with. 9 were given to men, and then another 7 were given to dwarves. There were really only like 20, and then Sauron created 1, and everyone caused a big fuss. You know, I have many friends in the dwarf community, but for the most part, I really don't trust them. They live alone on a mountain, and you ever notice that the dwarves, they don't like the dragons? Like, they're afraid of flying monsters, but everyone that I've ever known has come at me with an axe on a drunken night. What are they? Have you ever seen a dwarf woman, or even a dwarf child? Gandalf as well. I met Gandalf on many occasions. I don't trust him. He smokes way too much of the long bottom leaf, and that's another thing. If you look at statistics, long bottom leaf is way more dangerous than any magic ring has ever become. It's way more addictive. There's pictures of Gandalf and Bilbo just smoking it on a hill. Gandalf smokes it so much that he knows tricks. Blow his smoke into a big ship. Where's that ship going? Who is that ship transporting? Is it coming to Middle Earth? Is it leaving? How many young hobbits have gone missing?
Wait, what? There's missing hobbits? That does a really good impression. I've got about 20 of those sitting. Every time I open up Instagram right now, I see those. All right, lastly, you freaking jerks. Women. It's amazing that you are experimenting with cool things in the kitchen. I think that's great. I encourage it and I actually enable it. My wife can do all kinds of things. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. If you ever do this, this man has the right idea. If you give people fake chicken, that is not a bacon cheeseburger nationalist thing. That is grounds for probably a felony, probably felony assault, potentially felony murder. And although we don't encourage murder, this guy's not wrong. I just saw this and I can't not see it. So here you go.
I was 8 years old when I realized you can make fried chicken out of rice paper. Just marinate your rice paper in chicken broth, wrap it around fake wooden bones, dip in flour, and fry until golden. These are perfect to make if you're
trying to send a nigga to jail. Perfect to make if you're trying to send a nigga to jail. Because let me tell you something. The day that I pick up what I think is some fried chicken and it's rice paper soaked in chicken grease wrapped around a dog treat, I'm going to penitentiary. And I'm gonna do whatever I need to do in that moment. It's going to be a real gruesome crime scene, and then I'm going to be on the run. They're going to catch me in Chesterfield, Missouri. That's where the U.S. Marshals going to catch me. It's going to be a real short case. I'm not going to plead guilty, but they're going to find me guilty because I'm probably had DNA all over the place. And then I'm going to end up in the penitentiary like 23-1. Then my family going to try to come see me. I'm going to say, don't come see me because I'm a different nigga now. Now I'm running a whole gang in the jailhouse. I got niggas in there getting stuff in there for me. I got a couple guards working for me. You know what I'm saying? Book's going to stay straight. Book's going to stay straight. But that's what's going to happen if a nigga ever, tell me it's fried chicken and I bite into it and it's really not fried chicken. They're going to have a whole Netflix series about what I do to them on my life.
This guy's really thought this thing out. That affected him in a big way. You guys can see that there, at least, it doesn't mean that there's a lot of people that would go to prison for you doing that. But if you ever serve fried rice paper wrapped around a dog treat that tastes like chicken, there could be consequences. So just be careful out there this weekend as you guys do the things that you do. Give your kids a hug. God bless you. Thanks for listening to our show. I hope that made you guys laugh too. That's the weird look into my psyche and maybe I have problems. I'm going to go talk to my wife. She's a therapist. God bless. See you guys tomorrow. See you on Monday.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.